Okay, so I'll probably edit it a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are addressing criteria 2 about how we impacted each other during our conversation. So I'll just go first. I feel like in our conversation that we had, a few meetings, not a lot, but a few meetings that we had, I feel like the one, what you have impacted me the most is that the questions that you asked. Um, I remember the one that you asked me about whiteness.
Mm-hmm.
That what is my understanding of whiteness that has impacted me the most. At least that's the first thing I could think of when I'm like answering this question.
Mm-hmm.
So and that also that experience also drives me to have the way I answer the third question. Criteria 3 of has whiteness played a role?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember that we were sitting outside psychology building, and then yeah, and then you asked me about whiteness, and then I was trying to explain it, and then try to describe it in a less abstract way, and that really caused me thinking, like make me think deeply of um, my interpretation of whiteness,
Mm-hmm.
and I find that it's really interesting of um, um, like you got a concept, and you got a knowledge that you think you understand,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a total different thing that you try to conceptualize and articulate it in a way that you try to explain and describe to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that feeling?
No, I definitely get that, and I think well, at least I find myself having all these thoughts in my head and trying to figure out whether they make sense or not, and they sort of kind of thumble around in my brain, and then it isn't till when you actually have to articulate it that you can make more sense, and so
Yeah.
being pushed to actually talk about things like this with each other.
Yeah.
I definitely see what you mean by
Yeah. Even if it's not, even if we're not like literally talking to each other, even during that few minutes of thinking in my head, it's like having a mini debate and argument to myself whether I choose to use that word to describe it or choose to use that word to describe it. And I guess that would also happen if it's to other topics or to other questions that you ask. Maybe it's not like it's not limited to whiteness only, but also to other question that you asked. That it it's like, because I truly believe in that knowledge would only be truly gained by through debate and arguments. I believe in that, and without arguing or without discussing it, that you won't internalize the knowledge. Does it make sense? Yeah. So like really the one the biggest impact during those meetings, I thought um, it's the question that you asked and triggered me to think more. No matter how I conceptualize that theory, or how do I articulate and describe it in a way that other people, not only you, but other people would understand it in that context.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's one thing that I feel like that has the biggest impact on me in terms of this unit, this course, what we've learned so far, and also what the learning strategy and the process of learning for me during those meetings.
Mm-hmm.
How about you? What have I impacted you?
Well, I think going off, it's not just in like one-on-one meetings that we've had or when we've caught up with each other, but I think also in class, like you said, a lot of your learning comes from, having those discussions and getting those questions out to other people in the class, to Joss, whoever it may be. And I don't know whether it's, my inability to get words out properly, but I find that that's been really helpful for me. Whether they're ideas that I've had personally and you've been able to say that you just happen to be thinking as well and you've asked questions about, that's been really helpful, or whether it's just been questions in general that, as, again, like you said, got me thinking that I wouldn't ever have thought to say myself. How at times in class, like, you've challenged people's opinions. I think that's something I'm very afraid to do of. Even we were talking in class, sort of what Bob was going along about, not so much lived experiences, but if you're not willing to if you get a little bit scared of challenging people, I must admit I am a little bit worried about that.
Have I challenged people a lot?
I don't.
I didn't realise that.
Like,
really?
I don't think. Well, yeah. I think that you have like some strong opinions, and I think that you've also said them really well. So it's never come across as
like rude type of challenge.
Yeah, like you don't. It's
okay.
It's not. You've always been able to see people's sides, but your opinions have been quite different to other people's opinions in the class.
Okay.
Which, like we always say, as long as we do it in a respectful manner, which you have done, I think that's come across in the class a bit. I think also, I was saying before, your culture from Hong Kong, you went into conversation a lot because that's something that you hold quite very closely to you, and it's something that you use in your everyday living. And like I was saying before, if I go back on a personal level, I have a lot of different cultures in my family, and I think that to begin with, probably thought that I was quite aware of culture, or just a very multicultural person. But really, in comparison to you and what you've shown me through, what you've said, or your beliefs, or what comes up in conversation, I am really not like you. It's very much ingrained. And of course, like, we have different backgrounds.
Yes, of course.
But also, I do really appreciate, again, when you've come up with, opinions that might be different to others, the reason, you always provide reasons behind it, and a lot of that has to do with your culture, and you explain that, which I find really interesting. It's on a personal level, but also I think when someone can not only state exactly what they're saying, but can provide reason behind it, I find that really helpful. And again, it doesn't mean that necessarily I
would take on board or
agree,
but at least I understand that.
So that's something I've definitely taken from you. You always give reason to what your beliefs are, and some of them I've never thought of. I think probably the most notable, I don't know how this comes across, but I think, and I'm very much the same, I don't know if you agree, but I'm quite factual. I do like to have answers, and I don't know, when we're talking about multicultural, when you brought up about if Australia was to be completely multicultural, does that mean we'd be 100%? And how, like, to put figures or to make sense of it. I very much relate to that, but sometimes I don't know how well. I think that, like, then other ideas that people bring into conversation, maybe not that we don't agree with, but it's just
different ways to understand or to interpret an issue. I totally get it. I get that from you too.
So I don't.
That's good. Is there anything else?
I just think that first point you made,
Yeah.
having to actually physically talk to people, like
Yeah.
having to take time out of class, not just in shoots, has been really helpful. It just means that you
Yeah.
need to think through, not necessarily think through things, but put more thought into things instead of
Yeah.
just sort of sitting amongst yourself and just sort of
Yeah, you need to
pondering about
somehow
things.
internalize it and
Yeah.
to wrap it up in a way that you could explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really interesting, isn't it? It's like, it's like, it's like you bought an iPhone, and then you know how to use it, but when someone asks you how to
Yeah.
use it,
Yeah.
you need to somehow show them, okay, that's how I change my wallpaper, that's how I download the apps, that's how I check my email, and to show, and that's by doing that, that's the time that you really understand what you're doing. Because if you don't truly understand it, and if you couldn't explain it in a way that people will understand it, that means that you haven't really using the iPhone.
Yeah, and it also helps. Yeah, it's kind of like helps you refresh on things that you
Yeah.
already believe in, but like, oh, remind myself why, or
Mm.
yeah, no,
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
nah, not a worry.